Good evening. Welcome to Mind Matters, where every Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. we explore relevant mental health issues. And this is the second show since we've been on hiatus for the last few months. I'm your host, Dr. Cassandra Wanzo, a psychiatrist in the Atlanta area. I've been in practice for more than 28 years. Our co-host is Officer Paul Devine, who won't be joining us this evening.
No, I'm not Paul.
But we do have our producer, Miss Pennye Rogers. Hey,
Hello.
Pennye.
Hey, Doc. How are you today?
Hi. It's, again, a blessing to be back in the studio.
Absolutely.
I know I got a lot of positive feedback about last week's show, which was Facing Mortality.
Yes.
And if you want to see that show, please go to YouTube and view that show on Facing Mortality. And one of the main takeaways was how people often say, you only live once. Well, the real situation is you live every day. You only die once. So that was an important message from that. Our number to call, because we welcome your participation, is 678-619-1402, 678-619-1402. Again, 678-619-1402. We welcome your participation. We'd love to hear from you. If there are any particular topics that you would like us to explore or discuss, please let us know. We're open to discussing all kinds of topics. So tonight we'll be discussing different areas. One of the things that we'll be talking about is sports madness, otherwise known as bad behavior in sports. I saw a clip last week when the Patriots were playing, I think it was the Chiefs, but the Patriots lost. You know, they have this real, I forget, it was a 10-2 or 10-1.
Yeah, 10-2 record. I'm glad they lost. Ha 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 ha. Oh, go ahead.
So, yeah, me too. So anyway, the fans started fighting among themselves, just beating each other up. I'm like, wow.
Probably alcohol was involved.
Yes,
I'm quite sure.
Alcohol plays a big factor in sports violence. A big factor. It's the booze that's that often leads to that. And I remember something that Reverend White always says about the word fan comes from the word fanatic, which is true. So a fan is derived from the word fanatic. So sports fanatics. And oftentimes the worst offenders as far as violence in sports, guess who? Parents. Parents of people involved in youth leagues are the worst because they'll berate the child, berate the coach. I've seen, like, when my son played soccer, like, the parents get out of control and the parents will often have to be ejected because they're the worst ones. And unfortunately for the children, that sets up a bad example as a role model, and that's often how people learn to become violent, is learn behavior.
Absolutely.
Right. There's several theories about how people learn to become violent in sports. And that one theory is like the learned behavior, like they see other athletes or parents, coaches, and model after them. Two other theories are the biological theory, which is that aggression is a basic human condition. And so when people will often use sports to kind of discharge built up aggression that they have, it's kind of like a social safety valve. They're letting off the steam.
Right.
So it's just a way to let off aggression. And then another theory is what's called just a psychological theory, where when people become frustrated over something, like a call that wasn't made or a call that was made, and they become frustrated and they let that out in aggression. Sports really should be, for children, something that's fun, where they learn sportsmanship. But oftentimes, if there's a lot of pressure put on them by parents, it becomes a very unpleasant experience. And as a result of sports, they can develop low self-esteem. They can develop anxiety. They can develop burnout, which would actually make them not want to participate in sports, and they actually experience burnout from sports. So it's important, for coaches to not put all the emphasis on winning, but to enjoy, some aspects. I know it's important to win, but that shouldn't be the whole focus of the sport is to win. So another factor in sports violence, recently in Detroit, there was a high school football game, and some of the students took a knee during the game, and some of the so-called adults, the white adults, the students who took the knee were black, and some of the parents from the opposing team became violent towards the students. They were spitting on them, punching them, calling them all kinds of names like the N-word, calling them monkeys. So this is just to show you how racism, can affect sports violence. One perspective that I had never really considered when I was discussing this with my son, who's a vegan, was saying that he felt that violence is related to violence in sports, and violence in this society is related to the violence that comes from consuming meat. I never thought about that perspective, the relationship between killing animals and eating animals and violence in society, but that was his perspective. That was a perspective that I had never thought of. So I want to thank my son for that perspective. Again, we would love to hear from you, to see what your thoughts are about sports madness or violence in sports. And that number to call is 678-619-1402, 678-619-1402. Have you witnessed or been involved in any incidents in sports where people become violent? And what are your thoughts about violence in sports? And some people just say that that's natural. It's kind of like a macho way of thinking, violence in sports.
But I'm just looking at when you were talking about the little leagues. Mm-hmm. You have children.
Yes.
And why would adults behave like animals or something, or worse, with no control in front of children at a little league game out in public? You don't want to have that type of behavior anywhere, but it just took me back to another. I saw a news clip where there was a big little league fight. At the game just a few weeks ago, or within the last month.
And this is involving parents.
It was a brawl
involving parents.
Yes, it was a brawl, and I couldn't believe that these parents were carrying on like thugs, like people that you wouldn't think that parents.
So-called adults.
Yeah, well, we all are big kids, we all have that inner child in us, but it has to be a deeper issue going on, and as you say, getting that aggression off. But I'm just looking at, though, how can you carry on like that, and you're supposed to be setting examples for your children. Exactly. And then just even if you disagree with a play or a call or anything, do you act that way on your job? Do you bully people at work? Do you, I guess this is what you do around your home. So you really have to think about that. These people are just probably violent people anyway.
Exactly.
And so, because what's in you going to come out.
Exactly.
So I'm just feeling that it's something a little bit more deeper, but you mentioned the meat though. Hadn't thought about that.
I hadn't either. That was a whole new perspective. I hadn't thought about coming away. I was discussing with my son, and that's what he said, that he equates violence in society with killing animals and eating animals, and that's just another form of aggression.
But then too, I look at talking about, even though it's in the sports arena, but this thing with Michael Vick.
Oh yes.
How people are still holding this dog fighting against him, but they're not complaining about people being killed.
Exactly.
Especially African Americans.
Exactly. Especially African Americans.
I just can't understand if I feel that if you're still holding on to, this man has paid his time, he did his dues, he did the jail time.
Exactly.
Lost a lot. career, everything, and then you still want to hold that against him. So
it tells you it's more than
it's racism.
It's racism.
Okay,
Yeah, it's racism.
I said it. I wanted to say it because
racism.
it's like so. I'm just trying to figure out where they going with this thing. Why are you still holding this against someone for fighting dogs? But then look at the people who go on these safaris and kill lions. And
yes, did you see Donald Trump's son was just in Mongolia recently, just in the past few days, and he killed a rare some kind of animal that was very rare in the country that he wasn't supposed to, and shot and killed. But there are numerous pictures of him shooting big game,
and they have the trophy. They got the animals for trophies,
exactly.
And so I just can't understand. I mean, well, I understand because we have a double system. We have a double standard in our system. But if we are African American or people of color, we are held to a higher standard, a double standard, and we can never live down or live up or get rid of our past because people will constantly hold it against you. And so I still have a problem with that. And I'm thinking, me personally, I do feel that, and I hear that was something to think about what your son mentioned about the meat and the aggression. But I'm just looking at the overall double standard and the justice system that we have against people of color, and how people can get away with things that others can't get away. Because as I was explaining to you about my situation that happened the weekend, with this person vandalizing my car, destroying my vehicle. And I was in the house, but I know that the law would not have been on my side because I was in the house. My life wasn't threatened. You know how some people try to do, just stand your ground and you're thinking your life was threatened. But I know that by the person being a non-person of color, I believe that by this guy being, and I knew he had to be on something, meth or something. He was under something, or had to be crazy. Had mental issues to come into a neighborhood 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, broad daylight, and think that he wasn't going to be noticed.
And he parked his truck right next to you?
Right next to mine. And that's what was so odd. If he had parked down the street or across the street or behind mine, somebody can break down. I can understand that. But his vehicle didn't break down right next to mine. I mean, like
he
this.
Was in your driveway?
No, it was on the side of my house. But it was in my yard. That was my property. And for him to do that, so I had to do, and I never knew what would happen, how I would react in a situation like that, but my life wasn't threatened, so I can't say that, I was terrified for my life.
Was George Zimmerman's life threatened?
But that's my point. See, it depends on who you are. It depends on who you are and your color. But I knew that it would have changed the dynamics of my life all the way around for both parties.
And you see where he's now suing the family for
$100 million.
Something crazy.
You know, I'm
just going to kill their son.
And then want to sue them because what he defamed the character is defamed. But look at the trouble that he's been in since that time. Look at all the cases and other things that have come up.
I'm surprised that he's still alive, truthfully.
I mean, but really, but if he had been black, though, I'm quite sure several attempts would have been. I'm just saying. I'm gonna do a disclaimer. The topics and opinions are those of the host and not that of the management. Okay, but really though, just from our society and just how I guess people feel that they're privileged. That's all what it boils down to. Entitlement.
Entitlement. A sense of entitlement.
And I'm really, it's really because I think people know that they can get away with it. Like all those other calls that have been made to 911 because a black person was barbecuing and their smoke was coming over that way, and this person is. I mean, really?
Yes.
It's still the race card. And people want to say we're using the race card, but if you're tired of hearing it, what do you think we go through every day living it?
But you know what's made it more acceptable? This sense of entitlement. It starts with that person in the White House,
upper management,
that person that's sitting in the orange man, Cheeto. Excuse me.
But really, though, but it really has opened the door for people to. I mean, let's make America great again. But we need to get rid of this racism and this entitlement that people feel that they.
Two weekends ago, I went to New York. I saw several plays, but one of the plays I saw was called Slave Play, which has been very controversial.
Oh yeah!
So I saw that, And I wish I'd been there because they do have the question and answer periods, but the day that I saw it, they didn't have it. But the weekend after I saw it, they had a question and answer period with the audience. And this Caucasian female gets up and tells the author of the play, who's black, that he's racist. The play is called Slave Play.
So what was the dialogue supposed to be?
And then she went on to say how she's tired of hearing how white people are being blamed for slavery, and she's just tired of hearing about it.
Well, so did she leave? Did they?
Oh, she went in, she cursed, she called them names, and then had the nerve to come back the next day because my friend is the stage manager for the play. She said that the next day the woman comes back, creates a big disturbance where they had to call security demanding her money back.
You know, see,
actually, she'd seen the play,
but see, that's the kind of stuff. I mean, what was the name of the play again?
Slave Play.
So what was the dialogue supposed to be? Yes, massa. I mean, I'm just saying, were you supposed to? What did she expect?
Exactly. But her sense of entitlement, she felt like she was a victim and that she deserved the money back, and she's tired of white folks being blamed for slavery.
But that's who did it, right? I mean, okay. But see, that's the case of Mind Matters. That's the case where we need to schedule her an appointment, set up an appointment to come to your office and get on your couch and to have to find out really what's really going on with her.
Because there's obviously more going on with her. Because she did make in her remarks that her children have been taken away from her. That tells you.
Oh, well, see that. Yeah. Well, see, she was already, and I'm not making light of the problem that we have in our society of mental illness. I'm not making, no way am I making light of that. So I don't need anybody bashing us and thinking that we're bashing people with mental illness.
But so no matter what, this white entitlement privilege just comes out and out, just through, no matter what.
Okay. So that's why I just can't understand why and how people are. I mean, so if she's tired of it, how does she think a black person would feel?
Thank you.
And we live it 24/7. Right, I mean, we can't take this off.
Exactly.
So how do you think that black people feel, people of color feel that have to go through this and live with this every day?
Exactly.
So if you're tired of it, can you imagine how tired of it we are too? And so that goes back to one of a saying that I always keeps, it's always in the back of my mind about how can I, about disarming a black person when their color is what you fear.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm just, so going back to your initial sports and violence and meat and so forth, I still think too, there are some other underlying issues, and that entitlement and those other, they have to have some sort of other mental issues going on. Maybe they're on some meds or need to be on meds, and I'm not making light of it. But people really need to stop and think about if this was you or your child, how would. I just read another article where the school, this one of the top universities somewhere, or another high profile school, their person in charge, or whoever the guy was, called an African American a creature.
A creature?
Yes.
This is a student calling another student a professor.
No, I won't call him a dean. I'll try to find it. But they call the student, their comments, the student was very smart. Was very, very, very smart. And instead of him addressing the student as being an intelligent person or an intelligent man or woman or student, he used the word creature. Wow. He was the most intelligent creature or something.
Wow.
But, so things like this,
it's like people, dehumanizing black people. It's dehumanizing,
and I'm just really sick of it. You know, I'm just tired of it. But you talked about another instance, and I guess I'm not trying to make it all about racism, but if it's the truth, it's the truth.
Did you hear the incident I was talking about, the high school in Detroit or somewhere in Michigan where some black high school students they kneeled, and then the white adults started spitting on them.
I saw the post. I saw it on social media.
Okay, throwing things at them. They called them the N-word, called them monkeys.
And see, so how? I'm just really. It just behooves me that people are actually so blatant with it. It's not hidden anymore. You know, you used to could have the hidden racism, but now people are just so comfortable. And like you said, it's because of our leadership
exactly
that's perpetrating it too as well. And I'm just not, it's the older I get, the more it just.
What was the company said? The good people on both sides. Back in the Charlottesville.
Oh yeah, with the
march,
guy running over the lady and killing her,
good
and
people
the
on
Nazis
both sides.
and
Good people on both sides.
I mean, really? How can you equate that
violence?
with?
Yeah.
And so going back to maybe the diet, but it's got to be something else involved too with the diet. And I just do feel though that people should. It's just something else we need to look at. It's and maybe if we cut some things out of our diet, maybe it might.
But there's a certain mentality that I think related to guns and violence and aggression, toxic masculinity. The term. When I went to South Africa and I went on a safari, and the majority of the people on the plane were white males dressed in fatigue uniforms who were also going on safari. But I heard one guy say, I can't wait to start shooting and killing. And this guy was looking at him on the plane, and they were just all excited about the prospect of going over there and shooting and killing animals. It was amazing, that kind of mentality.
Well, I put it this way. Well, in that instance, I'm glad that it was the animals who can't protect themselves. But it's no different than when they are here, when they do deer hunting and other types of I won't call it game hunting because that's over in the, over in the other countries. But when we shoot deer here, a deer is not a violent animal, but they make trophies, they get food, they get meat, and then too. But we got to look at though too, like you said, the diet and that masculinity thing. But in everything though that we consume, pretty much. If it's even a vegan diet, the vegetables and so forth, all this is pesticides and other chemicals. Those other chemicals are in them, and
True, true.
And then when we have the animals, even if we're eating chicken or fish, they're talking about the mercury that's in the fish. They're talking about the hormones that are being fed to the chickens, and so no matter what we eat, but even a vegan diet still consists of chemicals. And
You're right.
Wow, but this masculinity thing, but then what do you say? How do you blame that on the women then? How would you account for that?
Oh, you're right, because I remember during when they had the lynchings, there were men and women both, yelling and screaming.
Oh, and they had the children enjoying it and thinking it was fun. I mean, so, but that learned behavior and just that. It still boils back down to that entitlement, though, for me.
Exactly.
It still boils it down because if you look at the ones that are not being hurt and harmed, if you're looking at the ones that are, who is impacting, it's us.
Yes.
It's people of color. And people seem to enjoy. It's going back, if you take it back further than just here in our country, but back in the other days of the Roman Empire and how they had the arena games where they had
gladiators.
That's the word I'm looking for. So it was still then. I mean, they were doing the same thing.
Like I said, the whole biological theory is that there's this innate aggression that's the sports are a way to release this built-in aggression that people have.
But then too, and I love football. I love the contact from the football too. But I'm just still looking at in the other sports, they're making them so aggressive. Just something as simple as a basketball game. It gets very physical. Sometimes it seems like it's more physical than a football game. But look at hockey.
Oh yeah,
I call that a big fight.
Right, I've never been to a
hockey game will break out.
That's what I hear is
it's just a fight, and a hockey game will break out every now and again.
Hockey,
that's how they talk about it.
Right. And then over in England, the soccer games are very violent. I hear the soccer games are very violent.
And so maybe, but then too, and I hear you saying that it is a way to release that aggression and that other adrenaline and all that other things, all the other things that come with those aggressive sports. But I just think it's just people. I don't think the sports, because everybody doesn't play sports.
Exactly. Sometimes what people will do is they will tie up a team. The team becomes their own personal identity. So that team is their identity, and they tie themselves with that team, and that's their identity. And if that team loses, it affects them personally. It's a loss of self-esteem, and they take it personally.
But then, too, going back, you just hit another key word, though, too, talking about the self-esteem part in terms of people are not happy within themselves.
Exactly.
and you take it out on other people.
Exactly.
And sometimes you tend to prey on people that you think that you can, that's not going to be able to defend themselves.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't. You don't see them a bully picking on somebody their own
bully,
size.
Exactly. It's a bully.
They don't pick on people their own size.
Right.
It's always the weakling. It's always that person that will not defend themselves.
Exactly.
And so it really is. It really just boils down to mental illness. To me, I think it's a mental problem, and not just the sports or your diet. And I know that your diet can play a lot into it too, based on what you're consuming and putting into your body. Then you mix it with alcohol.
Exactly. The alcohol disinhibits you. Things that
you'll do some things that you probably wouldn't do.
Yes, drinking. Yes.
But I do think it's a deeper issue, and I think that we really need to society. And I notice a lot more behavioral clinics are opening up too around Metro and other places as well, other cities and so forth. But it's still not enough for the amount of people that we have. But then you don't even have enough people, enough doctors to man these clinics, to see these patients.
There is a shortage, like a psychiatrist. I know I get calls, emails, texts every day trying to recruit, me to some place, but it's definitely a shortage.
Wow. So just based on just what you have to do on a daily basis, are you seeing, I guess, and I know you just had the conversation with your son, but do you generally, when you talk with your patients, do you find out if what their diet consists of, or?
Not as much as I should. Not as much as I really should.
But since it's come up now, do you think it may be something that you may be kind of looking at a little bit more as well?
Exactly.
Because I'm just, but it just really puzzles me, just as a society, we're just becoming, we've already been barbaric, but it's just, it seems like it's getting worse to me.
Because I think, when I think about people who are vegan, they do seem to be more calm, less violent. I think by nature, I think if you're vegan, then your philosophy is one of more like non-violence. I think that's part of the thinking, the philosophy of the vegan.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then, since we're on the subject of diet, and you know how some cultures, some other cultures, particularly like the Jewish community, when they have the kosher, in terms of their food and their meats and the blood and all that, they eat the food that has been completely drained of the, how their meats and how they're processed. And so just looking at that from a cultural standpoint and a diet concept, but you still have some of them still doing some other stuff too. I'm just saying, so I was just I'm just thinking in terms of just the blood and the meat and so forth, and the protein.
He's been trying to call and can't get through. So.
Okay, Mr. Oliver, can you check the phone, the Skype? Did a call come through? Is he dialing the right number? Our number to call in is 678-619-1402, 678-619-1402. You can give us a call and share with us what you think about this topic that we're discussing. Doc, what was the complete topic again?
Sports madness, bad behavior in sports.
Okay, give us a call at 1-678-619-1402. You're listening to the WCEG Network on the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. You can log on to WCEGTalkRadio.com or go to YouTube. If you have a smartphone, smart TV, go to YouTube and catch us live. Dr. Cassandra Wanzo is here in the studio, and we're trying to get back in the flow of things. And no, I am not Officer Paul Devine. But call us, 678-619-1402. And but yeah, Dr. Wanzo, I do feel though that there is something else a little bit more, something else going on. It's a little something else going on. And I know, Mr. Oliver, we're off subject, but we didn't need to do the lights or anything. We're good with the lights. So you can see me good on the camera and everything. Oh, I'm just teasing. But no, I just know it's one of the last steps that we did not take care of, but we're just trying different types of lighting and sound and so forth.
The number. I don't know when he's coming. I just text him.
Okay, and I'll even try it myself just to see if it'll ring. But we've been working pretty good with Skype over the last since we've been back in the studio. We always test it, and it's been working pretty good. But yeah, It's working.
Oh,
So that's me. That's me.
Oh, that's
I was
you.
trying it, but yeah. But Paul had said since he was calling and can't get through, so maybe he was dialing the wrong number. That's 678-619-1402.
Okay.
And so I guess just from a community standpoint, professional standpoint, this aggression, and it's just outside of sports as well.
Exactly.
It's just too much violence. And I do believe that it's something else, some other imbalances going on mentally. It got to be for you to
But I
act.
think there are other influences, like, I mean, I don't know a lot about video games, but I understand there are a lot of video games that have a lot of violence.
A lot of violence, killing,
Right.
and they start at children.
Are playing these video games.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what the actual, but I hear that a lot of them are very violent. So I think that does desensitize you to violence.
Wow. But then when you have people that sit around and play those games, those violent video games for hours and hours and on end, people don't even have a job, and they'll sit around, or they'll come in from a job, from working, and get on those video games. And is that releasing aggression? We're getting kind of like.
Well, I think I said it. If you like constantly put, involve in these role plays and you're killing people, I think it really does desensitize you to killing and to violence. You become desensitized. It's not any big deal to you.
Well, then if that's the case, then these movies and these other outlets that we use and that we have for entertainment.
Well, that's where parents need to, have some involvement and control. In China, because my son teaches Chinese students, in China they've limited, it's outlawed, like you can only play, I think, 2 hours a day or something.
And that's
It's
enough.
outlawed.
That's too much, really. But but two, I'm just even looking at how when we people will put a device in front of their child
to babysit
the child from. I mean, I see babies operating phones and tablets.
You seen babies?
I mean, small babies in your lap.
Wow.
They give them the phones to keep them preoccupied. And I don't think that's good.
No,
What's wrong with, I mean, I think we just shared an article about a week or so ago about doctors are advising parents to stop giving children these electronics and to give them more playtime or have more time with your child as opposed to putting a device in front of them. I see children playing with tablets.
Wow.
From games to movies. I mean, they're still operating this electronic device, and the child is in their own little world.
Who's that? Like, is it Bill Gates who doesn't allow his children to?
It was one of the. I was just reading that. I read an article too. They didn't allow them to use electronics.
Right. Exactly. So
they had to have
something.
Because they knew what it was going to do to you mentally, in terms of it will say desensitizing.
Exactly.
You don't have social skills.
Social, that's a big thing, the lack of social skills, because being on social media all the time, you don't learn how to interact with other people, so it does interfere with your social skills.
Matter of fact, it was said that a teacher sent in her resignation through a text message to her principal. Can you believe that?
I believe it.
But I'm just and just looking back and talking about the opening subject too, when we were talking about the teacher that was publicly crying out for help. The suicide note that was put on the board. That teacher was crying out for help.
Yes.
And they fired the person instead of getting them some mental help.
But if whatever depression she was going, this will only
maximize it, take it up to 100% stress. You lose your job now.
Yes.
That could have caused the person to really commit suicide. Really?
Yes.
So that's why I'm just wondering, what are these administrators, what are they really thinking? Because, our society still make you shame for needing counseling or going to the doctor. I'm just trying to figure out, where are we going with this thing? Where are we going? So what do you recommend, or what are your thoughts, Doc?
Well, I guess as much education, like with this show, to help people understand, that mental illness is real, it's treatable, and to kind of destigmatize, mental illness and mental health. Because right now it's something that people make fun of or joke, or, and it's something very serious, and people don't take it as serious as they should.
And just with that CDC report that was out a few months ago, where you have more children committing suicide, that release that was done, 10 years old. And I mean, you will have a lot more of that in our society. And just the bullying. So you have the adults that are bullying.
Several children that have killed themselves over bullying.
And it's still, and then too, when the parents try to go to the school or go to the other parent, It's like a joke. It's a game, and the child is still being bullied. So I feel that the teacher was being bullied by the administration for being fired. So what have we come to as a society? Come on, y'all, talk to me. Y'all got to talk to us, because I have hope, and I do know that we can do all things through a higher calling and a higher being in our lives. But I know that some people, even Christians, I'm even going back and seeing more ministers, preachers, pastors. They're tired. They are killing themselves.
Did you post that article?
Yes.
This minister that's
taking
hiatus because
he said he's just tired and he burned out. And it's like, we don't have help. It's like, you can't just, I know people tell you to pray. Okay, that should be maybe Paul calling us.
Okay, then. Caller, can you hear us?
I can hear you, caller.
Hey, welcome, Officer Paul. We miss you.
Boo.
Oh.
Hi, P.
I'm happy to be with you.
So what are your thoughts, comments, input? We've been talking about sports madness, aggression.
And fanatical individuals who are so loyal to a sports team that they're willing to fight, hurt, kill, and injure just simply because of.
Yes.
I reached the point that every time I hear a story of a fight at a Little League game, or fans in the stadium at professional and college sporting events get so worked up because of their team, loyalty to their team, that they're willing to engage in violence just to prove their superiority.
Exactly.
The scary part is the violence at sporting events really mimics the same violence that's on the street. And it amazes me when some people try to differentiate and say, hey, well, it's not different on the street. It's not a true crime. Shooting, stabbing, fighting, kicking anybody is a crime, no matter what the venue is.
Right. You tell me there was some woman that killed another woman over a sporting event?
Absolutely. Alabama fan murdered her friend because she felt she was not remorseful enough during the Alabama loss. Now, Alabama's an outstanding team. They one of the elite teams in the college football Division I program. But at the same time, I'm sure Nick Saban and the University of Alabama do not support the kind of violence that its supporters advocate. And it's very rare. Let me say that. Very rare. Because in this situation, the victim and suspects were females. And normally, sports periods is usually associated as a male-dominated venue. But
was there alcohol involved in this instance?
I can't recall, but I'm pretty sure at any college prep game, tailgate, get-together party, whatever, alcohol is always prevalent. That's part of what makes the party up and running. And a lot of times, it should scare you more when people and jump into acts of violence where alcohol is not present, because that means you were in your clear mind.
But then, too, I look at with the college ball games, like just for instance, when the SEC was here last weekend, and the SEC did not allow any alcohol sales. They didn't want Mercedes-Benz selling alcohol.
They didn't allow any alcohol?
No,
really?
Only in the suites where the corporations, the different people, and the fans were outraged. And if you think about it, most college students are underage anyway. But
but you also got to think of, and here's where it's unfair. College and binge drinking, alcohol of any nature go hand in hand. It has long been, how shall I say, conveniently ignored. It has been unofficially supported. The University of Georgia and the University of Florida annual football game that goes back decades was called the world's largest cocktail party. And so think how ironic that is. It's the world's largest cocktail party, but yet aren't most college undergrad underage? I mean, they won't be graduating until they're 21 or so. So that means, all the alcohol that's consumed fraternity and sorority events, as well as dorm parties. You know, alcohol is a part of college life, whether you like it or not.
Very true.
Okay. Wow.
And unfortunately, and what's the biggest thing college advocate as student activity? Sporting events. Especially if you're in a Division I school with a top-tier football program, especially if you're in a part of the country where football is king, the SEC, the Southeast Conference. We're not even going to talk about the Midwest and other.
Like Madison, where I went to school, was considered like the #1 party school at one point, and they did a lot of drinking in Madison, University of Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Wow.
and keep in mind, that is a high, it's a lot of drinking.
That is. And then if you mix it with other substances as well, that doesn't help either.
Well, I'm glad to hear the SEC banned. Is it only at that stadium or at other SEC games?
Well, I think it's the SEC thing.
But you can't say it's going to be okay for the SEC to ban, because think, the money you're going to lose. Mind you, these college programs,
but it's more
especially in
than
Division
about
I,
the money. But I guess they're thinking beyond the money. I mean, beyond the alcohol. So
Big
that's the good thing.
Time money. Boosters. We're talking about those who pay for these programs to happen. We're talking about these who consider themselves alumni with deep pockets. Do you really want to enrage your alumni base?
Well, maybe we
talk
should.
about millions of dollars.
Like you said, it's more than about the drinking. It's about, diminishing the violence at these games.
Yeah, but you also got to think about who runs these schools, too. Of course, you have a president, your board of regents, and you have all your different deans. But alumni, especially alumni with deep pockets, are very, 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 very influential in these situations, in these schools. And at the end of the day, you got to keep in mind that these schools have reached a point where the power base of the alumni exceeds the, capacity of the president to say who's going to do what. Why? Because we reached a point where we know that no matter what you do and how you do it, these schools thrive on tuition money. They thrive on giving back from alumni, contributing millions of dollars each year. We have budgets set by the respective regions of all these colleges and universities nationwide, but that budget is operating costs. Imagine the hundreds of millions of dollars that come in through alumni giving and booster programs and college programs, which at this point, I believe college athletes should be paid, which is a whole other subject.
Yeah, I agree.
Instead of them giving it to them under the table, they should go ahead and make it legal, because they're doing it anyway, because it's happening anyway.
Just think about all the schools, major schools that were put on probation or lost scholarships or the NCAA sanctioned because of recruiting practices and violations of the program to recruit some of the best athletes in the nation. Bottom line, it's not even about the alcohol, really, it's about the money.
Exactly. It's always about the money.
It's always about the money.
It's bad when our society has just come to that point of it's more about the dollar sign than the well-being of a person, than an individual. And that's where we should draw the line, even when it comes to, even with this political situation where Kamala Harris came out because she can't compete with the billionaires.
Exactly.
So it's really about who has the most money. And if that's all that's our society is driven on, why teach morals and values if if somebody with more money can come in and change the game? Or you're trying to please that person other than an entire society, a community?
But ask yourself, is that not the American way?
It is. It's always the money, the bottom line.
Yeah, but that's
it
why I
always
say
has been, and it always will be.
And we're going to be going straight to hell in a handbasket, on a rocket. If we continue
that sounds logical.
But that's why some people are feeling entitled.
Because I don't know an undertaker is going to bury you for free.
But listen, but look, Paul, but just look at the violence and the people that are feeling entitled because they have money or because they're a certain color. We were talking about that before you called in. It's more like these people are feeling that they're above the law. You
Well,
know, the more money you
we
have.
have our celebrities and athletes feeling they're above the law. We have allowed this system of truth and justice and the American way to be perverted to the point to people feel I can buy my way
Exactly.
out of anything
Exactly.
that I have to deal with.
Exactly.
Because it's always been a privilege. That's the reason lawyers make the money they do. They're not out to prove that you're innocent and guilty. They look at the system and the way they went about bringing the charges, and they find any technicality that could say, well, you know what, you got to let my client off because you didn't follow the rules. So it's not a matter of innocent or guilt. It's a matter of who can prove who did what right.
Yeah, which is sad when we've come to that. Well, I don't think it's really changed, but just for our society to place things above people. Doc got a lot of work to do.
We place a lot of things above people.
She doesn't have a big enough couch, okay? No, but really, we're putting things, we're putting animals, we're putting money, we're putting power and prestige above people. And that's where it causes people to feel entitled.
Just think in mind, we're putting things that we value. In other words, you know, every celebrity or athlete was that a person, a normal Joe, before they became that celebrity or athlete, a household name. That doesn't change their character or moral code. It just puts them in a tax bracket that most of us will never experience.
Exactly.
Yes.
But we allow certain acts and crimes to be committed by celebrities, athletes, and everyone else we feel to be privileged, and we give them excuses. We give them excuses when they do get caught up.
Harvey Weinstein.
But look at the average everyday police officer like yourself, Paul. But look at a person like yourself. We make moderate incomes, but we are still giving those that are doing the wrong thing. We're making them feel that they're doing the right thing when it comes to color, when it comes to people of color.
And here's the problem when we say people of color in my book. We as African Americans still have a value system that's really screwed up. We look at the criminal acts and a lot of these antics, a lot of these so-called celebrities and rappers who are African American, and we tolerate it. Not only do we tolerate it, we justify when they get caught up in a situation. Well, you know, everybody else does it. You know, one thing we failed to do a long time ago was start policing ourselves. And at the end of the day, it's a priority for us to police ourselves. And if we are not going to accept the fact that we have endangered or created situations where we fail to act accordingly, then why should any other racial group even remotely take us serious or give us consideration as being model citizens? Just keep in mind, we're not judged as a whole when it comes to the racial stereotypes. We're judged by the few individuals who negatively are impacting our race. And everyone thinks, well, that's how black people are. Well, there's a lot of black people who aren't that, who are model citizens, who have contributed to society, who have been pillars of science, pillars of law, pillars of athletes, pillars of education, pillars of entertainment, doing it the right way. Hands to Denzel Washington. You know, they are role models. Angela Lansbury, Oprah. We can go on and on with all the ones who have never, ever placed themselves in that position or embarrassed our race. But do they get the credit they deserve? No. Because
but unfortunately,
the ones
you have
that get
people
the attention
who already have preformed ideas and stereotypes, and so when whatever segment acts out in a certain way, that just feeds into whatever their preconceived notions are anyway, and it justifies, they use it to justify their stereotypes and prejudices to begin with.
Yeah, I understand, it's more, but the stereotypes is what we give the attention to. So you got to keep that in mind. Regardless of what we want to call it, the fact remains that we have violated not only ourselves, but we've compromised our integrity on every level, especially when it comes to the celebrity status or financial status.
But still, too, and just overall, though, and I hear you, Paul, and I'm just looking at just how aggressive that it's flowing over into our family, into our children. and they're introduced to it too early, and you're
I
creating
understand.
you're creating little monsters. And
Well,
so there should
keep
be
in
a
mind,
way.
these little league programs, T-ball, all the Pop Warner leagues, these were designed to be feeder programs for the next Michael Jordan, for the next Tom Brady. These
But
kids have
every
already
child-
identified at an early age.
But every child is not going to be the next Michael Jordan. What is the percentage
Exactly.
rate? And so, but that's why we adults need to instill in our children that they can be doctors and lawyers and scientists and astronauts and all these other jobs and other careers and leadership, as opposed to thinking that everybody is going to be a basketball star, a football star, dealing with sports. And we have to stop glorifying it as adults.
Right.
We need to stop that.
Exactly. 'Cause
Why
that
not
can put
look
too
at your
much
child
pressure.
instead of looking
I
at your
understand
child
that,
saying, "Oh, you will make a good,
I understand what you're
a
saying
good ball
from a
player.
logical,
You'll be a good."
reasonable adult
No, we got
point
to
of view.
stop that.
But you also got to keep in mind, unfortunately, that we have invested greatly into the system in America. We value that athlete, whether the alpha male, the alpha woman, it doesn't matter. We champion, even when an athlete falls from grace, even when a celebrity is brought up on criminal activity, we still look for opportunities to get them to redeem themselves. That's not necessarily given to the average person. It doesn't matter what your racial background. Look at that, how many individuals we have in the criminal justice system who are convicted felons, who would never have that opportunity in life. But look at how many celebrities and athletes have been convicted felons, and yet they still were given opportunities to redeem themselves.
But why they won't let Michael Vick then? Why don't they let him go back and come back, and he's served his time, he's paid his fines, he's lost jobs, careers,
but
and
you
then they
also
still
gotta
got
keep
Michael
in
Vick,
mind,
but they're
Vick
still
has been
throwing
able
him
to-
under the bus.
He's been given a compensation for it because he's an announcer on one of the sports shows. He's one of the things. He's still being sent, but you got to look at the numbers too. When you commit atrocities to the point, whether human or animals, this still going to be this is a lifetime price.
Okay, but look at the ones that are getting away with killing black people. Really? They're justified.
But when we
People
start
feeling sorry
saying
for the lady
violence
that
and
went
killing-
into the cop that went into the neighbor's
But
house, mistaking it for her house. You are really right. Okay. But I'm saying, but they
that
were
goes-
more apt
but
to
that
forgive
brings us
her.
back to where we say
Woo,
justice
don't get me
is
started.
not
Don't get me
equal.
started.
Justice is not equal, because at the end of the day, again, it goes to our value system. What we choose to overlook and what we're going to turn around and demonize.
Right, because there have
And
been
those
football
who we give
players who've
benefit
been
of the doubt, we overlook the criminal activities and mistakes they
Right.
made, and we allow them to move on with their life.
right. But I'm saying, but
But
there
I
have
deal
been
with
other
people
football
every
players
day
who've been.
who convicted felons who would never have a
But I'm
life.
saying, when it comes to say football players compared to Michael Vick, who've been convicted of domestic violence, physical violence, murder, things like
A
that.
human being, but Michael Vick is still being thrown
Right.
under the bus over a dog. I mean, really don't get. And I love pets. I love animals. But this man, how many times will he ever be able to not be continue to be stigmatized and people trying to still hate him? That's why it's a little bit deeper than just the crime he committed.
Exactly.
And so it leads
But
back to other things.
But we no, it leads back to where that society, where society is at a time. Because if you want to look at another prominent black member of the African American community who have been able to raise above that, you look at Don King. You look at Don King's background, and you start to see that Don King, his crimes committed against humanity were well above what Michael Vick has done. But Don King not only overcame that, Don King turned around and became the most powerful boxing promoter in the United States at one point. You couldn't put on a heavyweight fight nowhere without Don King getting the cut of it.
But listen,
And
though,
that
but
was
look,
long
but look
after
now,
his conviction.
But look, Paul, though, but just look at some of these well-known, powerful people in our society. Just for instance, look at the Kennedys. There were murders that happened in the family, and things were swept under the rug. And I know it's getting away from sports, but we're still talking about human life. And you have these, so it's not just the celebrities. We got to stop giving people passes. But then look what they're doing to Bill Cosby, and look what they're doing to the other
Cuba Gooding.
and your R. Kelly's. And I'm not excusing any of this pedophile activity that R. Kelly is being accused of, and then Bill, what they call him, Peel Bill, or whatever they call him, the Bill Cosby with the pills, even though it was adults that he was supposedly doing this to. But I'm just looking at, why are we as a society still allowing these other people to keep putting us black people in these boxes and continue to give us the harsh treatment and the double standard in the justice system. So we can kind of take it in a lot of different directions, but the sports world that we were talking in the title of this topic of this subject again tonight,
sports madness or bad behavior in sports.
And that's why I say, and it's I was telling Dr. Wanzo, Paul, that it's more than just it's a lot underlying things. I'm looking at the mental illness that's going on with this, the aggression that's already being there, the alcohol, and then probably other substances and other meds that these people could be on, and just the aggression that people have. If they can't run something, they're going to try to fight it, fight their way, and be a bully about it. And that's all it's being. And we're in front of our children doing this crazy, having this crazy behavior and this violence taking place, and then we wonder why the children are going to school beating up on other children. Really? So yeah, but it's a lot more than just the sports, and I because we even went back to the days of the Coliseum, of
the gladiators.
Gladiators, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. You know, just look at it. It didn't just start now. It just didn't start now. With
now, understand this. I truly understand what you're saying, but I want you to take this in context. Keep this and really take this in context. I would say human nature throughout the beginning of time, we have judged the strength of society, the individuals, the alpha male or female, by blood sport. Blood sport is something that people demanded and wanted. People flocked to see battles between gladiators, between human and animals, between those who they feel life didn't deserve life. And keep in mind, gladiators that were victorious, after 5 or more victories, they were given their freedom. And they were held as heroes to be uplifted.
The one that came out, the one that was still standing. But yeah, and I do appreciate.
But that still remains. You know, the NFL, the NBA, the national baseball as a whole. You got to keep in mind, these are the 3 major sports in the United States of America. Soccer is rapidly growing in popularity.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
It may be even eclipsing football with all the migrants that we have now. But you got to remember, it's the spirit of competition. There will always be a competition in every level of our lives. Whether you're in a band trying to compete to be part of the marching band first string, or you're a part of an athletic team, or even more so, you know, in the business world. You compete against your very co-workers in the business where they're competing against other corporations around the world.
Yeah, but I'm talking about beyond the competition. I'm talking about the violence. Beyond competition, it goes into violence.
Yeah, but you understand that violence is met in a lot of ways. It's not only just, how should I say, manifested in criminal activities or the violence of sports. Right now we're dealing with workplace violence. We're talking people who are so fed up and stressed because of the how should I say, the hostile environment in which they work, or the companies that they work for, that they're now coming back and committing criminal acts, murders that we still trying to understand. Even in our school, why are we having all of these active shooters in schools by young people who haven't even started to live their life yet?
Because of what they see the adults in their world, how they handle problems and how they are. But that's why I know it's more dealing with something else mental is going on.
Also copycat to get the fame and notoriety.
Let's just say simply, and this is really what covers it there. These are people who are angry. Forget about their mental state, their financial state, their relationship. They're people who are just mad. And it can manifest from mad at an individual or a family or a foe to simply just mad at the world. And what better way to get back at those who you think that hurt you? Hurt people still hurt people.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Regardless of the stereo.
Absolutely. But that's why, Paul, and that's why I know that it has to be a better way to handle this type of, these issues that's going on in our society other than handling it with more aggression. And that's why I know that it's more of a mental type of thing too that's going on. And we even talked about diet.
Yes.
We even talked about the diet. They may even be the culprit in helping people perpetrate this aggression. And even
But here's the thing I want us all to keep in mind. When we start talking about diets and what we can do, then that means we have government overlook. That means now we're going to be in a situation where government tell us what we can and cannot do to bring about a more orderly and peaceful society.
Well, you got the government, the one perpetrating it too. So hey, we got the wrong system now trying to help govern. That's like leaving the rat with the cheese to watch the cheese.
But you got to keep in mind that system is human nature. Just a few years ago, the state of Georgia didn't allow alcohol sales on Sunday, and that's been like that for over a century because being part of the South and the Southern Baptists were
they were still drinking it though. They were still moonshining it though. That didn't stop it.
Like during Prohibition, they were drinking.
Now, but they want the money that's coming from it. They want the revenue though, Paul. They want the revenue.
When it finally reached the point when times had changed, and then the Supreme Court of the state said, "Listen, you know what? Government can't tell you whether you can consume alcohol or not on Sunday." And they put a vote to the people. They said that's a referendum that the people themselves have a right to decide.
You could drink it, but you just couldn't buy it.
And what happened? Alcohol sale laws passed by a landslide when it went to a vote of the people. So anything that we experience, whether good or bad in society, this is what society wants. There's consequences and benefits to every act. But when society says, this is what I want, and in every religious group that was against alcohol sales fought like hell to keep it from happening. But then you got to go back into the 1920s and look at when we had the Great Depression and we roll into the 30s, the government made the mistake again, prohibition. Right. That led to one of the most violent times ever in American history. Prohibition. That's the reason we have the St. Louis, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, Al Capone, John Dillinger. We can Babyface Nelson. We can go on and on and on about infamous criminals that we have idolized. But we keep forgetting they killed hundreds of people in their criminal speed. Prohibition was big money. And big money was that was the crack and meth and weed of the day then.
Yes. Well, speaking of that, since you mentioned the crack and the meth and what's happening now, the opioids and so forth, why is it that, and I'm still going back to this leadership, and I'm going back to how the government and others in our society, how they shame mental illness and you needing help from a mental standpoint and seeking counseling as opposed to, it's just how they now have taken these common everyday, when the crack epidemic hit, they were blaming the parents and they were blaming everybody for the crack epidemic, but now it's opioids. Oh, and it's a problem. It's an epidemic and we got to get help for people. But they didn't do it for the black community.
Exactly.
So y'all don't want me behind this microphone because...
Keep in mind that when we say the crack epidemic, the government turned a blind eye for one reason only. Because now, decades later, files have been declassified. We found out it wasn't an epidemic that just happened. Crack was literally all over North and our government on the regular Reagan. But they were the ones
bringing it in, but they were the ones that introduced and brought it in our community.
The Iran-Contra conflict that was taking place. And now that we have never brought any of our top government officials, none of the senior executives, to justice.
But you see what's happening when you do just look at this impeachment proceedings going on. But look, Paul, look what's happening now. It'll be the same thing as we're going through with this Trump impeachment.
Actually, here's the funny thing.
It'll be worse.
Why you see all of this war on opiates now, and why you see this enforcement, and why you see officers nationwide really get to this, because it's happened to upper and middle class white families.
Right, it's in their house now. It's in their house.
So when we had the heroin up in the tri-state area between Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey, this was one of those epidemics where inner city communities were devastated. Heroin was king. Everyone still knows the names of Nicky Barnes, Frank Lucas, and all the other smaller dealers. But we glorified them when we made the movie American Gangster. Black people flocked to the theaters to see this. They were up there cheering.
Because we got top because it was because the other people were being killed because another race was being. But you got to look at it, Paul.
New Jack City.
But look,
Every
Paul,
black kid that I grew up
what
with
you have to
wanted to
look
be
at,
Nino Brown.
what you have to look at when that happens, though, Paul, we have always been the underdog and always been the one to be put down and always the one that get the raw end of the deal. When the tables are turned, that's when it's a problem. And that's why
I hear
our
you.
people,
I hear you.
but that's how
we
our
can't
people
afford
sometimes
to
feel
glorify that
that this
either,
is the, but it's
because
not the matter of
it's
it
still
being
going to get us in a
glorified.
negative way.
It's not
We
the
have
fact that
got
it's being
to reach a
glorified,
point.
though, Paul. It's not the fact that it's glorified. It's just that we are so sick and tired of seeing our people always being the one under the bus. We want to be either in the driver's seat sometime too, which I know is not good. I'm not saying violence, fight violence with violence, but just look, going back to just something as simple as these so-called hand slap that they gave to these parents that got caught with these writing these checks to these schools and getting their children
like a week or two in jail.
Yeah, and a slap on the wrist, and but then you lock up a mother here in the Georgia area for her father lived in another school district, and she transferred her children to and used that address as his father, but they want to give the lady 5 years. I mean, really?
Yes.
So it's something as simple as that. Something
I
as simple
agree
as
with
that,
you,
Paul.
but
So
I
it's
said
not
a long
about
time ago
us
that
glorifying
justice
when
is
we do
not
things, and you have
fair
some
for
noise
all.
coming through your phone that's affecting our stuff. So we need to let you go because your phone is causing us some problems here in the studio. Your background.
I do understand. But
But thank you for
when
calling
we start
in. I'm
talking
sorry,
about,
Dr. Wanzo,
Okay.
too.
Well, I think we do. It's about
It's about our
we do
time
need
to head out anyway. We were just doing an hour
So
today.
thank you, Paul, for your input. We definitely missed you, and glad that you called in. And so we will be resuming back in January on our regular schedule every Wednesday, 6 to 8. Our regular schedule. You've been listening to Mind Matters and WCEG, the World Empowerment Group.
Thank you, and we thank you all thank you, Paul, and we just really wanted to make sure that we can continue our conversation coming up the first of the year. We need to cut him off, Mr. Oliver.
excellent. I look forward to all
bye,
our
Paul.
readers.
Okay, bye.
Everybody have a great holiday.
Okay, thank you. You too. Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
But yeah, though, because Dr. Wanzo, I do thank you too for having continued dialogue, and I'm like your sister now. This morality thing topic on last week, I think it was very needed, and just being faced with some things, some life altering situations that come up in our lives on a daily basis. And my life kind of flashed before my eyes on Sunday, just going through the ordeal that I did and knowing how that could have changed my life at the blink of a hat. Just the bat of an eye, that your life can change in an instant. It doesn't take but a few seconds. With this person damaging my property, and if I wanted to stand my ground, I think it could have gone either way for me. Everything that I'm praying to make my 62nd birthday coming up in January, and here I am being faced with some crazy stuff that a person that looked like he may have been on meth or something, and I don't know what was wrong. He had to be crazy or on something, but just knowing that your life can be altered in a matter of seconds. So these parents and these adults that are out here with this aggression and around children and other people's children, and just knowing that there's another way we should handle our problems, and not aggression and fighting, because it only makes it worse. So thank you again for that wonderful topic, and going back to the one from last week talking about mortality, and just knowing as things happen and as you age, those things come up in our lives, and we need to think about it. So what do you think of the book that I gave you on last week?
I wish that I'd gotten it before, because I probably would have gone through some of those things during the show, but it's something that everyone should go through, and looking through getting everything organized in one
order.
place.
Okay.
Very helpful.
Okay,
very
so
helpful.
you're going to
Definitely.
okay.
That's
But they published that book. It was a book. I was wondering why I didn't have any information, but I had to remember they published that book. They put it together and published it. And so just going to being able to just it just kind of have you just making you think about what you need to do, and some of the crises that we go through. And, you know, we were kind of joking around earlier about some of injuries and falls and so forth. And it will cause you to start thinking about those things and being face to face with someone that's committing a crime right in your face. What do you do? How does that cause you to think about your life and the other lives that may be impacted by it? And so, yeah, so we know that there are quite a few topics that we will be able to get back to once we come back into the new year. So we're going to enjoy these next 3 weeks. After Saturday, I will be off. I really won't be off because I'll be working behind the scenes and continuing to build and to put more things together for us to come back in the station. But Mr. Oliver, we're going to call it a night. And so close us out again, Doc. I'm sorry.
I want to wish everybody a joyous holiday season, Christmas, Happy New Year, and we look forward to interacting with you back in January. This is Dr. Wanzo, host of Mind Matters, and we're thankful for you and blessed to have you. So,
and thank you for all of your support throughout the 2019 year and these past 4 years. We made it to season 4. We moved into our new location, and thank you all for your patience while we were off the air. But we have, it was room for growth, and it was just a lot different, kind of coming out of our little cubby hole, our little studio. But we know that we have wings. We can fly now. And so we want to thank you for all of your support throughout the 2019 year. And remember that we will resume Mind Matters on January 8th. But we will start that Monday on January 6th. But before this week is out, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more shows of people that will be coming in starting again tomorrow. From 5 until 6, we'll have our For Your Good, our traditional health with host Myrna Taylor Ransom. And then we will have our Hollywood of the South, WCEG Wood, our host Wardell Richardson coming in on tomorrow. And then Friday, our veterans will make it back into the studio after this will be their first time back into the studio at noon on Friday with Veterans Today with our host Anthony Aiken and Herman Anderson, and Gus won't be able to be with them. And then Saturday we'll come back, our immigrations attorneys. This will be their first time coming back into the new studio, and they will be in at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. So remember that we will have Church Biz at 11, and then our millennials will be in at noon. So we're going to have 1-hour shows for the remainder of the week, and then we will break for the holidays. So have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And stay safe and cut out some of the aggression. So maybe cut back on the alcohol, okay?
Right, yes.
Okay, but have fun, and thank you all, and we'll look to see you all in the new year. Thank you, Doc.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Paul, for calling in. Bye-bye.